Coming out is a continual experience. Some people think of coming out as a big event where you come out to the whole world. But unless you're somehow known by every person all the time, you end up having to come out over and over to new friends, new families, and in a trickier situation to people at work. I've come out 3-4 times, whether it be at an interview, just because of the way, I dress. This is actually the dress that I wear to interviews. So I want to share some of my tips and tricks to maybe help you. It can be kind of scary, but ultimately it's worth it. If you're new here, my name's Maya, and I make videos about being trans, queer culture, my thoughts on the world, and more. Thanks for stopping by. So my first tip is, even though I haven't had my name legally changed yet, I can still make an effort, make my chosen name known from the beginning. So on all hiring paperwork, I put Maya, and I only put my legal name when it comes to W-2s and an I-9 once I'm hired. From the beginning, this starts all my correspondence as being from Maya. My email's Maya, everything's Maya. So no one really has a reason to use my legal name, and no one's ever referred to me as my legal name because they know me as Maya. I introduce myself as Maya. That's what it says everywhere. I don't hide who I am when I go to the interview. I wear this dress, I have this face, I have this body, and if the employer wasn't comfortable with that, I'm pretty sure it's against discrimination rules, and I wouldn't want to work for someone who didn't like trans people anyway. I've been lucky to find jobs that my transness is not an issue, which has been really lucky and really cool, and I recognize that there's a lot of people all over the world and even in the United States that do not have that same privilege, and I really wish it were different. Then if my employers don't ask me for my pronouns, which they often do, I'll bring them up and say I use she, her, and sometimes I'll even ask what they use to try to make it seem a little bit more like, oh, this is something everyone does. A lot of my employers have been super kind in asking me, but even when they didn't, I would find a moment to step aside and let my supervisor know, hey, I use she, her. So my first tip is starting from the get-go, introducing yourself as your preferred name and only really referring to your legal name for important legal documents like a W-4 or an I-9 form. Then, going on to tip number 2, I help them out if they get it wrong, and I gently correct them, like, hey, by the way, it's she, her. Sometimes I'll correct them in the moment, but if we're interacting with a customer or something, I'll quietly tell them afterwards. And this has really worked for me, a gentle correction. I work in retail, so I've done it sometimes with customers. It's ma'am, it's she. They refer to me as gentleman or he. Sometimes they'll stop referring to me, other times they'll apologize and correct themselves. Luckily, I live in a city and have an employer who's really kind and is on my side when it comes to people respecting my pronouns. So yeah, gently correcting people has really worked well for me. And yeah, it's not about yelling at someone and saying, hey, you misgendered me. It's like saying, hey, I prefer this, or she, if you don't mind. And it's generally worked fairly well for you. It does take some guts, but it's gentle. It's all about a light touch. So just to recap, tip number 1 is start at the get-go with your preferred name and gender. In my case, I would say Maya. And if being trans doesn't naturally come up, I would mention, hey, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm trans. And that sets the tone for the rest of your relationship with those supervisors. The next step is to gently correct people when they get wrong, whether it's a coworker, customer, or even someone from management. People often are really responsive, and if someone keeps misgendering you on purpose and they're being mean, that's a different case. But I found most people want to be kind. And it's not always smooth sailing. I wanted to share a little bit of my job history in hopes that maybe you avoid some of these mistakes if you're in a similar situation. I worked at one corporation, and the person onboarding paperwork and all the logins I had to make wasn't there during my interview. So they didn't realize I was trans, and when they asked for my name, I said Maya, and it created a series of events that were my fault, their fault. It culminated with my bank thinking I was stealing my own identity due to the name Maya and my tone of voice, which apparently sounded feminine. Eventually, I got the issue resolved and don't really use that bank anymore. Another job actually let me use skirts and dresses, but I did get teased for it once and kind of felt out of place. I eventually left. My current job, I have a really great supervisor, really great coworkers who have been super welcoming and kind. I understand that not everyone has the privilege of living in the Bay Area and in California, or being out as yourself is dangerous. My heart goes out to those people, be it in the South or around the world. And I hope that we can create a world where trans people are respected everywhere and trans people can contribute to the economy just like everyone else. Come out as trans from the beginning, assert yourself, gently correct people, and look for an environment that supports you being trans. Thanks so much for watching. I hope some of these tips helped you out, and I'll see you next time. I'm excited to share the next video, something to do with traveling. I'll see you next time. Bye.